Okay, so now I'm recording. Yes, I am. It's a miracle of technology. Tonight's talk is on the subject of vision. And vision is, what do I mean by that? I mean about being clear in one's own mind about what it is we want and where it is we're going, and being part of the creative process of living. So we are co-creators, if that's not too much of a cliche. We are co-creators of our reality through our own thoughts and through our relationship with God. And when I say God, I always mean the God of our understanding. I'm not placing a particular form upon the word. So we are creating our reality as we speak. It's almost a fact, because in as much as everything that we perceive is filtered through our own experiences and our own thoughts, then we can change the very situation that we're in a millisecond if we decide to view it differently. It goes beyond the idea that we're simply the difference between glass half full and glass half empty, because that's a passive thing, that we're receiving the information of our situation and we're saying, I see that as glass half full, it's good, it's glass half empty, it's bad. Actually, no, we have created the fullness of the glass in the first place. We are part of the development of the process. We are intrinsically linked to the what we would call our reality. We can't separate ourselves from it. And it is one of the great illusions of humanity that we think that we're separate from that process and that we are passive in that process and that we're a victim of that process. So we perceive the external world to be attacking us or not cooperating with us or not being in the way that we want it. And one of the first steps towards finding mastery is to recognise that the part that we've played in creating our situation, and to accept that we have every choice about how we continue to play forward. That said, that doesn't mean that it's easy. In fact, it's not easy at all. And the very fact that we may have always created our situation gives rise to a whole host of arguments about, I was 3 when this dreadful thing happened. How did I, as a 3-year-old, create that reality? And it's very, very difficult to explain to somebody who has experienced something very traumatic to say, well, yeah, you created that situation, because it's so callous, it's so heartless, it's not compassionate. And what I mean by that is that in many ways, something bigger than us, whether it's a soul or a divine plan or something, a force for good, of course, but something designs our life, but we are part of it on a higher level. So it is my belief, and I try not to enforce my beliefs on other people, that we participate at a soul level in the design of our life. And the more conscious we become through the course of our physical human life of that participation of the soul, then the closer we become to spiritual mastery. I think if I'm making myself clear. So when we're born into this world, we're born into the forgetting, we're born into the illusion, we're born into a real sense of separation. As we come screaming and kicking into the world, we feel that we are separate from God, because we identify, or more likely as we grow into a toddler and a child, we identify so closely with the self. I am me, and this is me, and this skin, and this body, and this world, and this reality, and these parents, and this house is mine, and I identify very closely with it. All of that, however, is merely an illusion when we remember that we are not separate from that created us. It's not possible for us to be separate from that created us, because the original creator had nothing but itself to create us from. So as we grow and expand in our spiritual life, we remember our divinity, we remember where we've come from, and we start to remember, oh yes, my soul knows what's best for me. My soul contract has set out the terms and conditions of my life. And yes, at a soul level, I made choices for my growth and development. And those growth, very few good, happy, cuddly, fluffy things actually aid the growth of the soul. So as a general rule, we've had to overcome in our lives in order to grow spiritually. And it is in the overcoming that we see the merit and the benefit of those dreadful experiences. So that's not to say that people haven't suffered dreadfully and I am totally not saying that suffering is, essentially necessary, but there is a lot in this world that's beyond our control, and it is in the overcoming. It's in the response to it that we actually find the positives in it. And I think I've said in a previous talk, if we can see good in any given situation, then we can see God. And that is our responsibility, is to look for the divine in any given situation. Why am I talking about all of this? I am ramming home, I suppose, that quality of being a co-creator. I am really layering it on a bit thick, that we create our reality. And that means that at this very moment, we have created everything in our lives exactly as we, in inverted commas, want it to be. And that's very hard to palate if you are in a situation that you're not happy in. But on an unconscious level, so many of us feel that we require suffering and hardship and difficulties in order to be something, in order to be defined. And therefore, on an unconscious level, we do create the things that we want, even if that is illness and difficulty and loneliness. On a deep level, if we're creating that, it's because we're frightened of letting that go. That's very much part of who we are. So when it comes to vision, and I'm saying that vision is about where we want to be and what we want to do, we want to look at where in my life have I already got joy? Because joy is the greatest indicator that we are in alignment to divine will. And when we're in alignment to the divine will, then life unfolds perfectly and as it's meant to. And that doesn't mean that all the hardships of life drop away. It means that our resilience and our ability to overcome is increased. Because it's no point any of us deciding out of our human will, our lower selves, deciding I want this, 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 this and this. This is what I want and this is what I'm going to go for, if it's not in alignment with God's will. And it could well be, just a thought occurs to me, and as you know I don't plan these talks, so I've got to be tuned into my thoughts, that sometimes we may need to want those things that are not in alignment. It may be God's will that we want things so that we don't get them, so that we then are in alignment with God's will. That's a painful path. Wouldn't it be better off just checking in with the soul, with God, just to check in before we set off down that path, that we're not heading through a bramble bush, because actually we could be heading down the easier path, the simpler path. I think I'm posing a lot of rhetorical questions. The reason for this is that I'm exploring the idea myself. I don't actually have the answers. I'm a pilgrim on this path like everybody else. And it's been my experience that when I have asked of the universe things that I want and need, they have come to me, not in my timing, but they've come. So I have every faith that by asking, ask and it is given. Ask and it is given. But what I've found is that I've also been presented time and time again with amazing gifts that I never asked for. Or amazing gifts that perhaps on a deep level I did look for and did want, but I feared to name them, because in naming them it might be asking too much. But then there's certainly been experiences where I've been blown away by the magnificence of what's been presented to me, and I didn't consciously create it. And so when people talk about visioning, i.e., setting out what they want, the shopping list for God, I'm always wary, because it limits what comes to us. Even if we might think it's audacious, it limits it. Whereas there's something to be said about saying, my vision my desire is to be of the highest service. And I trust that what will come to me, if I make that commitment, is what I need. But at the same time, I also feel that there are these periods in everybody's life which are like wilderness times, where there's no clear direction whatsoever. We can be metaphorically, on a spiritual level, we can be completely lost on the open plain without any landmarks, any markers. Where do we go next? And then I think that's when the power of vision comes into its own, because when we turn within in that wilderness state and we start to ask, where do I need to be? Where do I want to be? Then what vision rises out of that is the bearing upon which we set our compass. It doesn't matter whether we get to where we want to go. It matters that we go somewhere, and along the way we can always make adjustments to our bearings, but it's important from where we are to set off on the path. So how do we know what the right direction is? Like I say, the joy, anywhere where there's joy, anywhere where there's happiness, anywhere where there's bliss, true bliss. I don't mean necessarily transitory, easy to come by, potentially addictive happiness, like it's over in an hour. I'm talking about a state of being where everything just feels right. And that can be difficult. So I've had experiences of that myself, where it's been difficult, but it's felt right. And it's in the feeling right. It's tuning into that, tuning into the body, tuning into the signals that we experience within. But out of that stillness, as we go within and connect, rises desire. And I'm pretty sure I've heard it said that desire, the root of the word desire is of the Lord. That desire rises in us, and that is God-given. That desire to create that business, or to have that relationship, or to do this creative endeavour, or to experience this experience. Those desires are given to us in order to provide us with the bearing that we would set off on our path. And I'm just keeping an eye on the time, because I know I could go on a bit. But there's an important point I want to make, which is that when we write down or put out there into the world things that we do not have as a vision, then in a sense we're creating a schism, which rhymes with vision. Sounds quite funny. It creates a schism because there's me and there's what I've not got, and there's the vision, that's what I want, and there's two separate things. And I think that creates a very strong message to the unconscious that says you do not have your vision. You do not have your vision. I want that. I haven't got it now, but I want it. I feel it's very important. If we're going to bring about the manifestation of our deepest desires, then it's important to recognise that there is no point in time in which our desires we're never going to be. So they will and are happening in our lives right now. In seed form. In order for them to exist as a desire, then you must already have it. But if what we're talking about is material things, or if we're talking about a relationship and we don't have a relationship at the moment, that's hard to see. But the seeds are under the soil. They're in the hibernation phase of winter. They're just taking root. But all things that we have, acquire, can hold in our hand or can experience in life, they are the outer manifestation of our inner state. So in order to have a relationship with another person, we have to have a relationship with ourselves. In order to feel materially wealthy on the external planes, we need to acknowledge the richness of our inner planes. In order to build a business, it has to be born out of our joy. It has to be born out of our bliss. In order to be of service to others, we have to look at what would serve ourselves. There's an inward action. If you could just see me, I'm doing gestures with my hands. I'm doing a pointing towards myself with my hands. Inward action, into the heart, and then out into the world. That serves me serves others. But that does not serve me does not serve others. I need to make sure that my needs I'm checking in with myself first before I go out into the world. And I'll finish on this. I've been actively using vision for 4 or 5 years now. And I've come to a point now myself where I no longer feel the need to put it out there what I want, because I can now see that those seeds I sowed 3, 4, 5 years ago, all of them are saplings in my young forest. I can see the growth in every area of my vision from that time ago. And it's taken longer than I thought it would. Maybe I thought it would I'd ask and it'd be given to me straight away. But it hasn't. So I am now at a place where my vision is not about I want to be or I want to get or I want to have. My vision is I want to deepen. I want to explore. I want to surrender further. I want to relax into and allow these seeds to grow. It's as if I have set something in motion that I no longer need to drive. I just need to experience and be mindful and connected and love every second of it. And my job is to remain connected and to not become attached to the outcome of the vision, but to enjoy the journey on that bearing towards that place. Because the desire that was given to me was not given to me like that business or that thing. The desire would be born out of a need for security, or a desire for love, or a desire to be creative, or a desire to be heard. These things are at the root. And by making sure that I acknowledge on a day-by-day basis where those needs are being met, then the vision, like a great oak, grows from those tiny acorns. I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.